All right, Joshua Wolfe, how's it going, buddy?
I'm doing very well, George. I'm excited to be back here with you.
It's good to see you, man. Good to see you. A new man, new man, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah,
Officially off the market. Congratulations, man.
officially off the market. I joined the Married Club. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, are you guys? You should be happy. I mean, how do you feel?
It was super exciting, and I'm grateful for the whole experience. It was really special, and uh, I've we were planning this wedding for a while,
Yeah,
and we just had it at the best possible time. I mean, just when things were sort of, everybody was relaxed. It was nice. We had a really small gathering with family, obviously with the restrictions in place, but it was beautiful, and we were able to do it and do it in the summer. It was amazing.
yeah. No, it's good. I just have a little thought about for your wife because they're like, okay, we're gonna get married and we gotta, we're gonna plan our honeymoon, and they're like, whoa, wait, there's an election coming. Well, what honeymoon?
Oh, the timing for that couldn't have been better.
Yeah, hold up on the plans.
So we got married on the 20th, and then the following, like the Monday after, I was working. I didn't. There was no honeymoon in the cards. But honestly, I love politics. So for me,
Yeah,
while it was unfortunate that we couldn't go on our honeymoon, like I work in this, I love it. It's not. I
yeah,
don't really see it as a burden in the sense that we will go on our honeymoon, but we'll go also when the weather right now is beautiful here.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
potentially going in November.
That's right. Yeah, you'll postpone a little bit. So yeah, man, talk about the elections. This is the big one for you guys. This is a Super Bowl.
Yep,
This is what you've been planning, training, working on, and it's here.
absolutely.
Just for everyone listening and watching, this is the Canadian Jewish Political Affairs Committee.
Yep.
Tell people a little bit what you guys do. What's your main area? What you guys focus on? Then we're going to talk a little bit how amazing it is and what you're doing.
Yeah, so I work at CJPAC, so as you mentioned, the Canadian Jewish Political Affairs Committee, and I'm the regional Quebec and Atlantic Canada director for outreach and programming. So for us, we're all about trying to engage people in the political process, and that happens at all levels of government, so municipal, provincial, and federal. And when I say that, I'm referring to trying to get more people to volunteer, to get off the sidelines, to find the political party that best represents their sort of values system, if you will. We start talking to people through our programs in high school, through university, and then the community at large. But obviously, during an election, we have a much easier time talking to people about politics because everybody's sort of more aware of politics because
Hmm.
they're being bombarded, if you will, from all sides, whether
Yeah,
it's
on a
on
daily
TV.
basis. Yeah,
Yeah, it's everywhere. And then they're starting to hear more about the political parties and perhaps, oh, wow, I didn't know that this party stood for that or that that party stood for that. And you're like, you know what, I really can get behind that. And I'd love to make sure that I do everything I can to help my local candidate for said party
hmm,
win this election. And it's fun, man. And the cool thing about this election is that it's different than any that we've ever had because of the pandemic, right? So a lot of the things that we encourage people to do and to prepare to do on a campaign can be done from home.
right.
So like, you and I have worked on campaigns together in the past, and I'll never forget the campaign office is one of the coolest parts of an election, right? Like you were running the whole operation, you and Doris.
You need a couple stress balls always at
Yeah, yeah,
arm's
yeah.
length.
It's very high stress and high intensity, but the cool part about it now is like, you know what? Oh, I have 2 hours today. I'm like, I'm free, and you know what? I have some time. I'm going to make a few calls, and I can just do it
Yeah,
right from home. And what's neat is that the political parties have developed these applications that you can use on your smartphone or your computer, and you just have caller lists, and you can do it whenever you have time.
yeah.
I have 15 minutes now. I'm going to make 3 calls.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. It's an interesting point, especially for the people that are starting in this political engagement. Sometimes you lack that little encouragement. You may be thinking, I want to help, but maybe I'm afraid or I'm scared. I don't know anybody. I'm shy. And if you're doing it from home, I mean, you have nothing to worry about, right? I mean,
Nothing.
you just go ahead and do it. You have no nothing. You no one over your shoulder. You don't have the whole stress of the environment of being in a campaign
Yep.
office. You know what I love about what you guys do is that your objective is more global than just something partisan, right? It's not like,
Yeah,
okay, who are we going to support? Let's mobilize, and because I mean that happens right at a party level. Your goal is like, okay, guys, we see you, we see what's happening. How can we help the entire situation over here? Like
exactly.
that.
And
Yeah.
we never tell people which political party to support. We ask people to figure that out and then come to us, and we'll connect you with whatever campaign you want.
See
So,
that it's cool because and people don't understand how much time that takes because it's not only from one to the next. We're in elections. Okay, guys, you go here, go here, and you're gonna go there. Where do you guys want? Like it takes time to educate the people,
yep,
to train them, to get them to learn how the process works. What's happening in politics, what's the reality, where which party do I identify with? Like there's a lot of work behind the scenes that happens before this whole campaign. That's why I said, like, I mean, this is your Super Bowl, right? I mean,
oh yeah, there's a
like,
lot of work that goes into this, and
how long have you guys been working for this? Like, I mean, you eventually knew that after 2019, it's a minority government. I mean, your experience and you're working with a team of people that have been doing this for years. You know that you have a window of about, let's say, 16 to 20 months before a
yep,
next
exactly.
potential election is called. So, in those 16 to 20 months, what do you guys do?
So in those 16 to 20 months, we're constantly evaluating the situation that's ongoing at the federal government. I think it's an interesting point you made about the minority government situation, is that I think the longest one in Canadian history lasted for 24 months, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, given that this was a pandemic, nobody was sure, are we going to have an election? Is it going to be something that goes on longer until we're through the pandemic before we have an election? But we were preparing, and we always prepare that there could be an election much sooner than anybody anticipates. And
Right.
the way that we do that is by running our programs for various age groups. So, when we go in and we talk to high school students, it's one of my favorite things because when I was younger, I didn't really understand politics. I didn't, it wasn't something that I gave a lot of thought to, right? There were other things that I was worried about, like a social life, etc.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now I find that younger kids are way more politically conscious, or at least socially conscious, than I was
Why?
when I was
How
younger.
is that? How come?
For example, like understanding the environmental uh, sort of scene, if you will, like why it's important that people do more to conserve and save the environment.
But
I
why are
was
they more? Why do you think they're more aware though?
Well, I think that there's social media has played a big part in that. I think that they're able to see things that are going on all over the world that are frankly scary. And then you see people that are their age that are doing things to actually impact policy
Right.
and change and impact the world. And there's no better example than Greta Thunberg. And she's doing an incredible job. And when she first got started, I think she was maybe 14, 15, probably even younger.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're going into a high school classroom and kids are like, well, how do I, I'm young. How am I going to have an impact? And then it's like, well, look, there's people your age all over the world. There's even a younger, I'm forgetting exactly how old he is, but I think he was like 16, 17 at the time, and he was creating a way to clean the oceans.
Right.
They started up a foundation to do that. It's like kids are way more aware than ever before. They have the tools at their fingertips to get involved and to make sure that their voice is heard and show up. And even in Montreal, we had a whole demonstration in favor of combating climate change before the pandemic.
Yeah.
There were a lot of young kids at that demonstration. Parents brought their kids,
Yeah.
and that the
But this,
environment is an issue. You have women's rights is an issue. Women in politics is something we really work a lot on at CJPAC, trying to encourage more women to get off the sidelines, jump into the political process. And that starts at a young age too. We want to see those young girls getting inspired by women in positions of leadership, right?
Josh, how does it work? Because I mean, you guys, I've worked obviously with you. You've helped us out, like after when I was still in politics and you had moved on. I've seen the amount of people that you guys could mobilize, and it was always interesting to me. How do you even reach out to these kids? Like, what's the plan? Like, obviously, the end goal is to have people involved at a time of a campaign, like now, for example. So the preparation for that to happen,
Starts.
I'm assuming that there's a bank full of names that you keep for people that from one year to the next keep coming back and they keep
We
wanting.
hope they keep coming back.
Yeah, but I mean, so I get that there's some sort of database that you guys keep, but for the new people that you want to bring in, what's the strategy? Depending on, let's say, for example, we want to take high schoolers or.
Yeah, that's a great example.
So what do? You call up schools and you're like, here, this is who we are. We'd like to come and meet your kids. Like, how does it work? How do you put your foot in the door?
So with high school kids, we approach schools there could be an election every year. There could be an election at any time, frankly, unless it's a majority government. But there could be an election at the municipal, at the provincial. It can always, there's always a chance. So we're always under the impression that it could happen. So we're running programs every year to prepare people for when that might happen. So we approach schools and we do this on a regular basis across the country where we're offering to essentially give a class over the course of a few months to their students about the basics of politics at all levels of government and then how they can get involved. And a lot of high school students have volunteer requirements. So part of what we ask those students to do is at the end of the program or during the program to sort of figure out which political party that they would like to get involved with, and then they can do their volunteer hours that way. And then once you sort of volunteer and the first time that you do it, it might seem like a daunting task at first, and you might be worried about how am I going to feel after I go into a campaign office or get involved with the campaign. But once you do it, it's almost like you're getting your toes wet, and then you're like, wow, I actually love this. It's getting that first sort of introductory experience out of the way, and then hoping that you'll enjoy it so much that you'll go back. And
Do
that's
school, yeah. Do the schools are schools normally open to this idea of politicizing their students, of coming in and raising awareness about what they could be doing during a campaign?
a lot of schools are. I would say most are definitely interested in it. It's more about the kids, right? Because it's an extracurricular. If you tell someone that when they're in high school that we're offering this class after school, after your course load, that you might want to take, it's all about how you present that. And we've obviously had success with students in the past. So sometimes it's a matter of going back with students who've done it before to
Right.
talk about
Testimonials. Yeah.
the advantages, because ultimately, like one of it's something that can bolster their CVs, right? So if you're applying to CJEP, if you're in Quebec or if you're in Ontario and you're applying to university out of high school, you want to show that you have extracurriculars on your CV that didn't just stop when the bell rang and you left school. Like, what did you do that sort of went beyond what was expected? And letters of reference, recommendation letter, that you might get from the candidate that you volunteered with or the volunteer coordinator that you volunteered with, and just the amazing networking. When I first got involved in politics and I was able to go to political conventions with you or with other people that I was meeting, it was incredible. You're meeting people from all walks of life, and you might meet somebody that's older than you in an industry that might interest you, or maybe you want to get eventually mentored by. It's an amazing opportunity in that way.
It's funny that you're mentioning this because there's a lot of kids that came from your program and I follow them because who these kids are. You meet them during different campaigns and whatnot, and you see them volunteering once, and then another. You see them again another campaign, and then you see them kind of working as a staffer, and then you see these kids how they go through this whole process, and now they're at a position where, and there's a few. We're not going to say names, but. They're working for ministers now. Like they really got in as at the most basic level. Let me make phone calls for you. Let me go do door to door, pass pamphlets, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see how it translated from that to showing up next to a minister or traveling with a minister or working on Parliament Hill or whatever. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's certainly one of the outcomes of the programming that we run is, some of these kids will hopefully develop such an interest in politics that they would look to maybe at least spend part of their career in politics. Doesn't mean that they're going to dedicate their whole lives to politics, but once you have that first experience, and then let's say that the campaign that you volunteer with, the candidate winds up getting elected, they have to then fill their team, right, with people. Or maybe you did an incredible job and you brought social media to the table, and they need to have somebody who works on social media going forward. It's a really neat opportunity for somebody who's just getting started.
So what's the biggest demographic, like in your pool of volunteers that you guys work with? What's the biggest age group? What's the one that you know that if you know you've had the most success with?
I would say it's hard. It's not so easy to say. We actually have a lot of success at all ages, and
Yeah.
even in the retirement community, especially now in the pandemic, we're trying to communicate with them that they can do everything from home. So there's a lot more interest there. But university students, where they're incredibly political at that age, where there's political clubs on campus, right, that
Mhm.
they're already getting engaged. We have a fellowship program where we work with students right across the country to get them politically engaged. They're out on the campaign trail for all campaigns, working day and night, and I'm hearing stories about the crazy schedules that people have, and it just it's incredible to see, and I know that you can relate to that. It's the hours that people work on political campaigns. I don't think most people understand.
Nobody understands unless you live that experience. You can't even fathom the amount of stress. But it's all adrenaline, though. Eh? Like I remember doing campaigns, and I had close friends and family where they would know that I come home like at 1, 2 in the morning, and I was out of the house again at 6, for example.
Mhm.
They're like, and you do that consistently for like a period of 30 days, and they're wondering like, he's sick, he's gonna get sick, the kid. Well, what's is he eating? Is he sleeping? And
Yeah.
you don't realize that, but you're running on such adrenaline because you're so passionate about what you're doing that you don't even think about these things.
No, and there's no weekends.
No, no,
No, I
no.
remember the first few times I volunteered and got involved in campaigns. It was like, oh, but when are we going to take a few days off? It's like, but what if you're working? Because campaigns are interesting at the federal level, right? There's a campaign window, right? When the election is called, and they can be at a minimum of 36 days, but at the maximum 50 days.
Mhm.
So you working that intensely for 50 days straight, I can only imagine the level of fatigue that you have at the end.
It's no. You finish that campaign and you're literally a zombie, which is why after that usually you take a break. I mean, you can't just bounce right into work. So things kind of quiet down after that. But yeah, it's something. It's a unique experience, and I think it's great to see the youngsters come in and actually live it and see it
Mhm.
for themselves. What kind of, like, the programs that you guys run, like, how do you what do you teach them? How do you go about telling them, look, this is how it works? And like, do you go through the ideologies of each party? Like, what's the education process?
So, George, you know what I think that you should do with your podcast?
Yeah.
I think that you should do. I remember Jay Leno used to do this, where he would go out in the streets with a microphone and ask people questions.
Yeah.
And then, what is a member of parliament? No,
Yeah.
sorry, actually, what is an MP?
Yeah.
Okay, how many ridings are there in Canada? You're going to get a question like, "What's a riding?" A lot of the time, and then they'll probably be a little bit confused about the difference between federal and provincial, and then
Yeah.
who's your premier and who's your prime minister, and it's sort of about trying to imagine at a younger age, when I was in high school, and what my colleagues when they were in high school, like, what didn't we know that we think that high school kids would likely want to know.
Right.
And so
So you guys are basically starting from the most basic thing. It's like, nothing. Let me tell you what a parliament is. Let me
yeah,
tell. Yeah.
yeah, what a parliament, what the
Like, you start
provincial.
from scratch, but it's cool because you don't learn that in school, or
No,
maybe, but
you might, and then it'll be maybe sort of encompassed into like an ethics class or a civics class, but it's also not necessarily required, and some people take it
right.
as an elective, and then when they graduate and then they first get the chance to vote, they might not be that interested because they don't know what they're voting for, right?
Yeah. So you start from literally scratch, and you have I'm assuming like a course pack that you guys
Yeah,
follow.
and it changes. We do different years differently. It depends on what's going on. It depends on like this year was obviously an interesting year because almost everything was done on Zoom.
Right.
So how are we going to engage students who are already in front of their computer screens all day to then do another few hours with us on Zoom later? So, one of the fun things that we did was introduce like trivia, and doing that with an interactive game on the screen where people would, how many city councilors does Toronto have versus Montreal? And then it's this
Right.
crazy number that most people don't realize why Montreal has so many city councilors, whereas another city might only have 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get into, okay, well, why is that the case? And it's super interesting. And then understanding where the responsibilities of different governments lie, right? Like, what is the government you would actually be impacted by when it comes to your taxes, or your healthcare system, or your education system? And then it's really getting into that, and then talking about that, and helping them understand the different levels of government and why it's important ultimately to get involved at all of them. It's not just a federal election is the only election that matters. There are other elections too.
Here's what I love about what you guys do, because there's obviously an education part of it. We just spoke about it. I mean, we want to teach you about what politics is, the different areas of it, the different levels, and just basic knowledge of understanding of how politics works, how parliament works, what a politician is, or a municipal councillor. So there's like a whole education aspect, but behind the scenes, though, you also have to engage in some sort of way in government relations, because you have to be able to merge both those worlds, right? It's one thing to teach what you want to the kids, or to the adults, or to the seniors, but then on the other side, you have to be able to say, okay, well, you're associated to the conservative values. I need to plug you with a candidate or whatever. So you guys, do you guys like, as an organization now, you have to build these relations with the political class as well?
Yeah, so we're all about relationship building. That's our specialty, right? So one of the ways in which we do that is by bringing elected officials at all levels of government to speak to community members in our different programs, right? Because we can talk about what a member of the National Assembly is to these high school students, but in terms of really understanding that, it's neat to bring in an MNA from each party, in one session even, to come in and speak about what's a day-to-day like,
Right.
what does your job encompass? We've spoken about it. We've outlined like what an MNA does, what they represent in terms of a riding and the political parties. Like, we go over all that, and then it's nice to get them to actually come in and really demystify the role of an MNA for people, like that they spend so much time in Quebec City, what an average day looks like in Quebec City, what it's like working with people who think differently, and actually hearing that from the person has a major impact, and can also help sort of give people a better perspective on which party they want to get involved with when you bring in people from all parties to come and give that sort of insider perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, I know a couple of the people that you work with, and it's just exceptional people that have spent an extraordinary amount of time working in politics, or working in government relations, or in PR, and it's just this accumulation of knowledge that you guys bring to the table, where at any time you can just open any door you want. And I remember in my campaigns where it was like, okay, what do we need? We need A, B, C, D. Okay, call Josh, see how he can help, and it's amazing that you guys have built this, and the way that you have built it in a way that you've gained this credibility, where the people that know about you have this reflex of just reaching out. It's like almost automatic.
Yeah. And it's certainly, we've developed a reputation. CJPAC's been around for a while, and when it comes to recruiting people and trying to get people to volunteer, it's certainly a help to the campaigns that are looking for volunteers, and that we find out that somebody wants to volunteer somewhere. When we do that introductory sort of connection, it's always very appreciated by the campaign that this person wants to help out with. It's not every day that somebody goes, who's not necessarily politically inclined, goes, I'm going to get up today and I want to go to a local campaign office to volunteer. I've even, friends of mine that I grew up with have never been to a campaign office, or people don't really know what happens in a campaign. And as I said before, like the intensity, right? The amount of time that goes into it.
Yeah.
But it's an amazing thing to see once somebody does experience it for the first time, where that will take them over the next few years.
Do you guys have any tools to quantify the effort that you've put in like over, I don't know, the last 10 years, for example? Do you guys, do you have the tools to say, well, this is where we were, look where we've gotten now? Like how many
It's a
people
really
you help?
interesting. It's an interesting question. I think that we would have a total number of people that have volunteered, and I think over time that number has gone up tremendously. So we know that we're obviously helping people get involved and get off the sidelines. So we're extremely proud of that. And when we hear positive reinforcement from even people like you, George, like about the important work that we're doing, that's exactly when we realize that we're doing something very good for democracy in Canada.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you were there already or not, but we were there at the very beginning of CJPAC when they came, because I think they had started in Toronto, if I'm not mistaken,
Mhm.
and then they opened up a branch in Montreal, and we were there at the very beginning of it. And I mean, the whole reputation, at least as far as I remember it, maybe I'm wrong, started around that action party.
Yeah.
That is
Oh,
a must. It's a must in like my agenda, and it's not only me; it's everyone that deals with public relations, government relations, politics, communications. Like everyone that is in this field adds this event in their agenda every year, where it's like the who's who of all this of all this industry
mhm.
meeting at one place. It's a huge party. You
Yeah.
have politicians there. You have businessmen there. You have like everyone is there. And I remember the first time that we were invited to that. And first of all, I was like, "What the hell is CJPAC?" You know.
Mhm.
And then we went to this event, and I remember the first one was, it was more of a trial, but it was still successful. And then after that, it just multiplied exponentially. It just blew up, and I was like, "What is going on here? What are these guys?
Yeah.
What are these guys doing?"
So that's one of our flagship events. We have an action party in Toronto, and we have one in Montreal every year. Obviously, the pandemic has presented a challenge to that, but I think a lot of people are looking forward to being able to socialize again, and we're excited to do that. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's an amazing opportunity that's organized that allows people to come for an evening that's fun, right? And it's an opportunity to have informal conversations while having a drink and a bite to eat and meeting somebody that you might not have otherwise had the chance to meet, and to have a just a frank conversation and get to know the person to person, at all levels of government. So we'll have municipal councillors, some provincial MNAs in Quebec, or MLAs. It all depends on which province you're in. And then some federal members of parliament that are there, and staffers too. And then it's neat because there's people from all political parties that are there.
Mhm.
So, and then we invite community members and non-community members. It's a party for everybody that has a political interest,
Mhm.
or is also looking for a social item on their agenda. And then they realized in that process, whoa, this was so fun.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was able to connect with somebody that I didn't know before. That it's a great networking opportunity, and
Yeah.
it's amazing to see the connections that come out of those events.
How far have you guys grown across Canada? Because I obviously I knew Toronto, Montreal. Is there any more branches, or it's essentially those two offices that take care of the entire country?
So we have an office in Montreal, we have one in Toronto, and we have one in BC.
Okay, okay.
So we're spread out across the country, and we do satellite events, and we have regional representation as well. Like for example, in Quebec, in the Montreal office, we're responsible for Atlantic Canada as well. So it's there's small communities in throughout the Atlantic provinces, and we go out there, and we haven't been there because of the pandemic, but
Hmm.
in normal times it's really neat. We go out there and we try and meet with community.
How's the level of interest, in the youngsters and in general the people that you're trying to reach out to outside, the big metropolitan areas? Like I'm thinking about the Maritimes.
It's there. And I think that what was neat in this year, because of the pandemic, we were doing things over Zoom. So it was actually easier to get people to tune in that were in smaller communities in other areas of the country. We gave them the option to connect through Zoom because there wouldn't be as many, but they would be able to join to the larger groups that we were doing in the major cities.
So another question. I just went back to your honeymoon for some reason because I was thinking, after this federal election, we're going into municipal elections.
Yep. And then we're gonna have provincial elections.
Your wife is face palming the whole thing. She's like, "Oh my God, this is never ending."
Oh man, yeah, that's a really good point. It's a bit of a minefield, but at some point we also, we're excited to go on a trip together, and I think that we'll be doing that in the near future once this election is over. But yeah, I'm very excited about the municipal election. I feel like people are really anticipating that, and I think that the focus is on the federal right now, but the spotlight, it very well, is going to shift immediately to the municipal, and I'm just as excited for that. I think that that's going to be a lot of fun to try and get people to volunteer with the campaign that they want.
How many people do you have approximately now on the ground? Do you have a number of people that are actively helping out now?
I'm not sure what the number exactly would be because it's really, again, because of the pandemic, we're operating sort of globally across the country. So, but we have quite a few people that we've connected, and I'm unaware of the exact number, but it's a good number. We're excited about it, and I think that we're getting more people than perhaps we would have anticipated because of the numbers of those wanting to volunteer from home.
Right. It's amazing, man. You guys always amaze me, and it's really impressive just to see the whole machine come in the works. Dude, thank you for coming on, Josh. I appreciate it. I don't know, man. At some point, we're gonna have to see each other eventually. Hopefully.
I know. I thank you for having me, George. I really appreciate it. I love listening to you and watching your videos and the guests that you have on. You're doing something incredible. I do hope to see you do one of these, pop-ups.
The Vox Pop, whatever they're called.
Yeah, in downtown Montreal, and just ask people these kinds of questions because.
Do you want to do that? Would you do it with me?
I think it would be amazing. I think it would be so interesting to see what people's answers are.
Okay, I'm gonna do it. We're gonna do it. I'm gonna put it together. You know what? I'm not joking. I'll try and do it like right before like at some point before the end of the campaign.
You'll be amazed. I think it would be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
we'll pick like a nice day.
Yeah. I'm suspecting that there's a lot of people that won't know, and that's the I don't know. It's the scary thing. Like you're asking someone,
and then get some like emojis on the screen, like a thumbs up if they know the answer. If they don't know the answer, it's like a thumbs
like an
down,
X. An X with a buzzing sound.
And then we can add it all up at the end and be like, okay, so we had 100 respondents, and this many didn't know the answer, and this many did.
Dude, let's do it. I'll prepare it. We'll do it.
Amazing.
All right, Josh. Thanks again, buddy. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Ciao.